Ladies and gentlemen,
coward.
You are now listening to Retro Radio.
Welcome to another edition of Retro Radio, your only comprehensive online source for classic arcade and computer gaming emulation news and information. I'm Shane R. Monroe, your host. Welcome to the program. Well, folks, it's been one busy month in emulation land. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm going to start off my editorial this month with the newest news on Nintendo 64 emulation. Now, I know many of you have written expressing your concerns why I am touching on Nintendo 64 emulation. Pete's sakes, I put a little tiny blurb on my webpage about Nintendo 64 emulation, and you people practically boycotted me. I'm not going to come to Monroe World to read about Nintendo 64, and you're absolutely right. I do not like modern emulation. That's not what Retro Radio is for. That's not what Monroe World's for. However, because Nintendo 64 emulation will probably set the precedence on how emulation is handled both litigiously and in the marketplace, I think it's very important that we touch upon what's going on, where it's going to lead, and I'll give you my opinions on it since lots of people have written and want to know. For those of you who've been in a deserted island the last few weeks, out of nowhere, from absolutely nowhere, from someone you'd never heard of before, comes Ultra HLE, the Ultra High Level Emulator. This Nintendo 64 emulator popped out of nowhere. Never heard of it before. There had been no screenshots posted, no rumor mill. Just out of nowhere, like a flash of lightning, all of a sudden, boom, new Nintendo 64 emulator. Now, it's not like the other ones like Project Reality, where they've managed to make a demo screen work, or they've got a title screen up, or they've played a couple of bits of music from a Nintendo cartridge. Ain't the same thing. Ultra HLE came in version 0.1, basically out of the box, playing Zelda 64, Mario World, Mario Kart, and at least a dozen others. And we're not talking about preliminary support here. We're talking about damn near pixel-perfect emulation. On my Celeron 300 overclocked to 374, I was running Mario Kart at over 30 frames per second. Now, it does require a Voodoo 2 card, or Voodoo card. I have a Voodoo 2 card to make the emulation possible. But most serious gamers have 3D effects already, have a Voodoo card. When you actually see this emulator in operation, it is a true miracle. Now, that's not to say that I condone modern emulation, but before I start ranting and raving, I've got to take my hats off to the programmers. The first thing you guys need to do is be congratulated. The second thing you need to do is be hired by Nintendo, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit later. This, like, 345K emulator, Ultra HLE, plays amazing. It's got joystick support. It's got sound support. It's got it all. It's got everything that a polished emulator should have. And this is the first release, first run. Now, we've had PlayStation emulators. Okay, we've talked about that, namely Bleen, which is pretty amazing all on its own, as well as PSMU and a handful of other PlayStation emulators. What's important to realize is that Bleen ain't out yet. It's still under construction, although I have seen a beta and I was very impressed. PSMU requires complicated setups. It's even hard for someone who knows what's going on to make it work. All of these other emulators that you may have seen or played in the past, like MAME or RetroCade, even they have a little bit of learning curve. Ultra HLE, folks, you drop a ROM in the ROMs folder, you run it, you double-click the game, and you're playing it. That's all there is to it. No drivers to set up. None of that sort of thing like PSMU has. This is an end-user emulator. Now that I've ranted on all about the Ultra HLE emulator, why? Well, folks, up until this point, there has been no way of playing Nintendo 64 games. Up until now, there hasn't been a great way of playing PlayStation games. Even the commercial PlayStation emulator, which is wrapped up in court already, made by Connectex for the Macintosh that plays some 40-something PlayStation games on a good machine. They're even wrapped up in court, but I don't even think that emulator is as polished as Ultra HLE, nor do I think that there is as big a potential of a problem with a PlayStation emulator. You're not going to go up to a channel, up on IRC, up on the chat rooms and say, do me a favor, send me Resident Evil 2 for the PlayStation. Not going to happen. You're talking several hundred megs. On the other hand, if you want to go up and get Super Mario Kart off the internet somewhere, it's only like an 8 megabyte download. That's realistic. That makes it a mass marketable type emulator. And frankly, Nintendo should be damn worried about it. We should be worried about it, folks. As a retro gaming community, we should be worried about it. People were up in arms already, us playing Galaga and Donkey Kong and Centipede and Pac-Man for free. And these are the games that aren't making any money. They're not going to make any money. They're probably never going to make any money again. Not even the remakes are really making that much cash. But now you're talking about reaching into one of the biggest game company in America's chest cavity, grabbing their heart, squeezing it, going, I can take you down anytime I want. All I got to do is pull. And that's really what we're talking about here. The Nintendo 64 emulator is an everyman's emulator. Anybody can probably go out and get ROMs for it. You can go out and search the web right now. Go to Hotbot, go to Lycos, go to Alta Vista, search for N64 ROMs. You'll eventually find one. That's lost capital. You can't tell me that we're losing money playing Pac-Man, but you go out and you get Mario Kart, you download that, and you don't go buy it, you're taking money from Nintendo. While we're on the topic of Nintendo, let me tell you what I think of Nintendo. I, like many other people, including the great Neil Bradley, who just had an interview with MU Views, I hate Nintendo. I don't like what they stand for. I don't like their marketing tactics. I don't like anything about them. I don't like their technology. I think the Game Boy is the most technologically devoid handheld I've ever seen. The Atari Lynx is still a better handheld. And that thing's 10 years old. Hasbro, if you're listening, someone in the Hasbro, you bring back the Atari Lynx. There'll be people to buy it. Forget this Game Boy crap. Even the Nintendo 64 is on its way out. I'm sorry, folks. N64's days are numbered. Ask anybody. Why in the hell would you want a Nintendo 64 where the cartridges are $80, right? New game comes out, $80. That's almost as much as the game costs. When you've got stuff like the Dreamcast, which I got to comment on this, what the hell are you doing making Dreamcast run on Windows CE? Yeah, let's get an immature, overbloated operating system from somebody who we already know doesn't know how to write an operating system right. Let's put that in a game system we're hoping nobody copies games for or emulates. Good call. Let's just save the pirates a little bit of time, and we'll make it in a format that it's easier to copy the discs or the cartridges, because Windows CE can already be ran on a PC, on a computer. Dumb move on Dreamcast part, and they're going to suffer for that. I can already tell you now. A little bit of psychic prediction here from Monroe World. With a PlayStation 2 pushing, 50 billion pixels per second per square inch, or whatever the hell the specs are, the PlayStation 2 is going to wipe all over the Nintendo 64. It's probably going to wipe all over the Dreamcast, too, which is good. I respect Sony. Sony has been doing things right so far, unlike Nintendo. Okay, so you've got all these new consoles coming out, right? Nintendo 64, no CD-ROM drive promised. Oh, no, promised, yeah, never delivered. No internet hookup, no modem hookup, which Windows CE, that's the good thing. Dreamcast should be pretty networkable or modemable. So you should be able to kick each other's butt on Dreamcast. Nintendo 64 has always been behind the cutting edge. And just like McDonald's, who quite frankly I think McDonald's food sucks, Burger King has better food than McDonald's. But McDonald's will always be number one because they got the kids in their corner pocket. And that's exactly why Nintendo still owns as big a share of the market as it does. With crappy stuff, with crappy marketing, with crappy everything, Nintendo still stays on top. And why? Because they got the kids. They got the kids, people. You parents know about it, right? Christmas time? Mom, Dad, you know what I want for Christmas? A Nintendo 64. While we're at it, Nintendo, hopefully you're listening in, what is it with that stupid commercial you guys ran after Christmas? All we got was clothes we couldn't use. All we got are all we got are CDs of groups nobody knows. What we really wanted was Nintendo 64 software. That commercial pissed me off to no end. And I thank the few of you that wrote in about that crappy Nintendo 64. You guys know the one I'm talking about, right? It's got this group of snot-nosed teenage punks singing some time-honored classic Christmas song with words totally rewritten by Nintendo, bitching about how they got just clothes for Christmas, or I got gifts that I didn't want. What I really wanted was Nintendo 64 games. I'm like, yeah, great message to the youth of America, Nintendo. Thank you from all the parents out here. We appreciate that. Anyway, so if I were Nintendo in this whole situation, I wouldn't be issuing lawsuits. I wouldn't be issuing summons. I wouldn't be issuing cease and desist. I'd be trying to hire these two guys. N64 technology's on its way out, folks. Nintendo, if you were smart, you go hire these guys, okay? You say, you write me a PC ready-to-go emulator, which they've already got the groundwork for. We'll shovel hundreds of thousands of dollars your way. You make it ready to go for the end market. We'll bundle 5 or 6 hot games in it. We'll sell it for the PC, $49.95. They'd sell millions of them. I'd even buy one. You make it so I can play 4 players on Mario Kart on my PC? I'm there. I'll pay you $50. I'll be happy to pay you $50. But just like all these other companies out here who keep trying to slam all over the emulation market, instead of trying to make money with it, they try to keep other people from sharing it for free. I haven't figured them out, folks. I'm at a loss. So what does all this mean for emulation? Well, already Nintendo 64 ROMs, while they were easy to get when there were no emulators to play it, now all of a sudden there's quite a bit of shortage. In fact, go out and try to find one that the links are broken or that someone hasn't taken down. You'll find it difficult. And if Nintendo does win a major strike, and if Sony makes a major strike against Connectix, this is the laws. These are the laws that are going to get set down against emulation, folks. You may not give a rat's butt about N64 emulation. You may not care about PlayStation emulation. But since that's what's in the news, that's what's going to fashion the market. Already, this is something interesting that I got to share with you. They're already starting to make it. They're already starting to release commercial emulation packages, which is great news. Unfortunately, most of them are for the PlayStation these days. Apparently, Konami's coming out with this new one that's going to have a bunch of Konami games like Time Pilot and some other ones for the PlayStation, ready to go. See, that's what I admire about the PlayStation market. You don't see Nintendo 64 releasing anything but high-hyped or licensed games. And like Neil Bradley said in his interview, you know why Nintendo's so desperate to hold on to these trademark characters like Nintendo and whatnot? Because they're the only things that turn Nintendo any cash anymore. They're the only things that they can ride on the coattails of. When's the last time you saw something original out of Nintendo that didn't have Mario tied to it somewhere? You don't see it. Anytime they release a new system, what's the first game that it comes out with? Mario this, Mario that. That's the only reason why they're all upset. It's because, for Pete's sake, that's all they got. And if you just watch the Nintendo market, you'll see that Neil's right. That's why I wanted to comment on the situation. These emulators, these new modern emulations, if people are making money with them, folks, I may not like Nintendo. Okay, I hate Nintendo. I may not like Neo Geo games. I hate Neo Geo games. But these people are still making money on this stuff, people. As long as you insist on skirting the law that close to the edge. Okay, playing Pac-Man for free on MAME, you're skirting the law. All right, let's just not even mince words. But you're playing Mario Kart, you're skirting a lot closer to the line than you are if you're playing Pac-Man. Okay? I don't like him. But we have to pay attention to these emulators. We have to see where they're going. And for Pete's sakes, people, don't encourage them. I think Ultra HLE is the coolest emulator I've ever seen, hands down, except for maybe Callus. Callus was a pretty cool emulator. Being able to play Final Fight over the net, that's pretty cool. Don't encourage them. Don't run the emulator up on your site. Certainly don't provide the ROMs. Let's kill off modern emulation, people. Let's not even let it happen. Because if we do, it's going to hurt all of us classic gamers. No one cared. Nobody cared about classic gaming. Nobody cared we were playing Pac-Man or Centipede until Neo Geo started getting emulated, until all this modern Capcom stuff started getting emulated, the stuff the kids want. As soon as that happened, the whole emulation scene went to hell. And you can listen to my past episodes. I'm not going to rant on that. I've already ranted that one into the dirt. Pay attention, people. Watch the market. Watch what's going on. Keep an eye on the Sony versus Connectix thing. Because I'm here to tell you, folks, it's going to end up biting us. Okay, enough of my standard ranting on Nintendo 64. Now what I'd like to rant about, give me a few moments here, is this GamePower issue. My God, can these people redefine the word lame every single episode of this show that I record? First off, remember back, I don't know, I'm going to just do a quick summary for all you folks who haven't heard the other shows. GamePower set up a main page with, 400 or 500 ROMs, and these guys took the stance of, here we are doing this for you. We've provided you these games. We've given you MAME. We've done this. We've done that. Have fun on us. Blah, blah, blah. Total lamenism. I mean, if you went to that page and you knew nothing about MAME, you would think that GamePower wrote MAME. You would think that GamePower dumped those ROMs themselves. You would think that GamePower was just hooking you up. I mean, you have to dig 4 screens down to find out that the emulator was actually written by some Italian people. That's what they put. The good folks in Italy, Nicola, blah, blah, that's it. They get one sentence. Yeah, great. Thanks, guys. And then their little lame-ass weekly newsletter that they put out. Oh, we've added 12 new games to MAME. We've done this for you. You can download these from us because we've hooked you up. No links to other sites. No credit where credit's due. Total lamenism. All right. So the IDSA steps in, right? The Digital Software Association, right? The ones that have been closing down all the ROM sites. They pop up. They shut down Dave's Classics. Boom. Dave's Classics, they get shut down, folks. They're gone. You can't even see the page. Then all of a sudden they limp back up, and there's no ROMs. No ROMs. Dave's Classics provider said no more ROMs. So they're dead in the water. IDSA strikes a sword into the heart of its enemy, right? All the while, GamePower.com still running ROMs. Hell, they still have a main page up. So for weeks, myself and others, we've pounded the IDSA to say, take them down. Stop playing favorites. Stop attacking weak sites that have no financial means to litigiously fight you, and shut down GamePower. Weeks went by, folks. Remember that? Weeks went by. We fought. We struggled. And then finally they said, oh, well, we're investigating the legal issues behind it. We're going to keep the ROM sites up until we find out for sure what's going on. So another couple weeks went by. It wasn't until 2 weeks ago that GamePower finally closed its doors. 2 weeks ago, folks. How long has IDSA been hounding everybody, right? So they say, oh, well, we're taking it down, but we're looking at setting up some offshore, out of the country websites so that we can provide you with the greatness that is MAME. We don't want to let our fans down, right? We for you, right? So they went through this big rigmarole. I started getting letters from people that said, oh, all that BS that GamePower is shoveling you about being shut down ain't true. Their main page is still in existence. You know what? They've still got an FTP site up. Oh, yeah? So Shane decides to wander over and find out if it's true. You bet it is. So I post a nice little message on my site saying, hey, these guys are still up. Why don't you do me a favor and go jackhammer the hell out of their FTP site. Go ahead and start feeling free to start ripping this stuff down. Let's see if we can cause them a little grief. Obviously, they don't want to play fair, right? Get a great place like Dave's Classics, always giving credit where credit's due, always hooking the public up, being the kind of support. Dave's Classics is unsurpassed. These lamers at GamePower were getting away with it. So I told all my visitors, I said, you go out and hammer these guys. You send them nasty letters. You turn them into the IDSA. You make sure that they don't get away with it because we didn't get away with it. And you guys, my visitors, my fans, you guys just tore them up. I got letter after letter talking about how you guys, this one guy, I got to share this with you, guys are going to love this. This one guy wrote to me and said he had an eternal download going off the GamePower FTP site. He was downloading every ROM that they had and sending it straight to his recycle bin. And he had this thing set up to do this over and over again. He ran this for 5 days straight. You guys rule. I mean, I hadn't even thought about something like that. He was just sending them right to the recycle bin. If I had his name handy, I'd pass it along. I'm sorry I don't give you credit where credit's due. Now, after all this support, I got this letter. I'm not going to give you the guy's name. I'm not even going to read it aloud because that'd give this guy probably mahogany downstairs. But I'm going to have to give you the general gist. The guy actually wrote to me and said, "Why are you being such a dick about it? Why are you turning in the GamePower? Why are you doing this? You know, I've been helping out the scene by dumping Nintendo cartridges or something like that." The guy was just a total loser. You know, I wrote him back and said, "Why are you yelling at me? I'm the good guy. I'm the guy that's trying to help emulation. I'm the guy that's out here with an ad-free site, no banners, no click here, no click there. I've been helping out. I've been providing credit. Why are you yelling at me?" You know, this guy was just totally all over me for being a dick. "Well, I should turn your side into the IDSA." I couldn't believe it. I did paste a copy of the message into the main chat room. See, that's what happens. You hang out in Maine, you get the good inside exclusive before the show. But I had to post this guy's letter, and a bunch of the guys online were like, "Dude, don't even give him the benefit of a reply." I just basically wrote back to him and said, "You know, why are you yelling at me? I'm the good guy. I'm trying to help. And if you bother writing me again, I'm just going to bounce the letter." And, you know, it's people that, you know, send it through anonymous remailers or through an AOL mail account saying, "Well, before you say I'm an AOL lamer, I just did this because I didn't want you to put my email address up." People, I'm never going to print one of your emails. I may laugh at you publicly like this when you deserve it, but if you send me a letter like that, what do you expect? I'm not going to reprint your mail, people. I'm not going to do anything without your permission. I may play Pac-Man for free, but I do have some morals. Anyway, so last but not least, GamePower finally did pull down their FTP site, just as a little follow-up here. They did pull down their main page. One guy actually sent me a letter back about what GamePower actually said to them. And in this sort of situation, I may have to look it up and see if I can read it to you. It was hilarious. I must have actually picked it up at work, so I don't have that here for you. But suffice to say, basically, they're like, "We can't understand why you're so mad at us. We don't understand why you were so happy to see the last remnants of a great thing go." Well, I mean, it looked like a form letter, people. There must have been more than one person, but it's like, "Let me tell you why we were so happy to see you leave, you butt nugget. You pass this stuff off as your own. You don't give anybody any credit." And I don't know, if you don't have GamePower's news, weekly news, I don't want to endorse them at all, but it'd almost be worth your time to go up and get on their mailing list. They send this stuff out once a week, and there's almost always a blurb on name. Dude, these guys are some of the most condescending sounding people. I mean, I don't understand. Maybe they are targeting the 13-year-old AOLers. I don't know. I'm at a loss. But if you read their news, it's like it's written for children. You know, and frankly, I'd get off the list, but I love reading the stuff they print about Maine, and it's worth it just to read that. Although Dave's Classics and I sort of take turns printing up their little news articles. It's too funny. All right, now that I'm done owning GamePower, I want to talk about this boycott that's been going around. There's a boycott going around for those, again, of you may be out on a desert island for the last 3 weeks. There's a boycott going on. And the guy has his nickname Captain Crunch, okay? This guy's trying. He needs to have his real name posted out in the open. Nobody takes anybody serious who hides behind an alias, okay? That's the only dissing I'm going to do on Captain Crunch. He's trying to organize a boycott, and he's getting some press. Basically, that says until the IDSA rolls over, stops trying to prosecute sites that have game ROMs over 10 years old. I mean, that cuts out the Neo Geo, cuts out the modern Williams games. That cuts out a lot. You take 10 years old. And trying to get people to agree to boycott companies that fall under the IDSA's umbrella. Since all they think about is money, Captain Crunch's idea is, let's start telling them that they're going to lose money if they don't hook us up. And this sort of thing has been accepted fairly well. I'm in agreement. Let me just put it this way. I agree with the concept, okay? I work in the PC industry, folks. PCs are my bread and butter. If there were no computers anymore, I'd be out of job. I'd be on the street eating leftover remains in a Kentucky Fried Chicken garbage bin right now, okay? So I have to play ball. And since somehow Microsoft continues to keep a foothold in the OS market, they have a foothold in the Office market, they have a foothold everywhere, I can't figure out why they haven't gotten their butt slapped for monopoly already by now and why it hasn't stuck. But then again, hey, we live in a country that the president can get a little bit of nookie on the side, take somebody in to see top secret information, lie on public television in front of God, the nation, and everybody, then get off for it. So why, if that's our kind of country, I guess, then why shouldn't we be able to let Microsoft have its little monopoly? Okay, that's the end of the presidential slams. I can't afford to ban them myself. My company can't ban them because everyone walks in wanting Microsoft Windows. If I told them we were going to put BIOS on all the computers, people would just have a total fit. Aside from the fact they don't know what BIOS actually is, I can't fight it. I can't fight what's popular because it's dependent on my job. But I can tell other people, hey, you want to run Linux? Rock on. You want to run BIOS? Good for you. Screw Microsoft. Screw Nintendo. If they're going to continue to plague you, boycott them. Tell them you're not happy. Write them a letter saying, I was going to pick up Heavy Gear 2, or I was going to pick up Humpty Squad game down at the store, but you know what? I don't like the way that you're being represented by the IDSA. Do you know that they're trying to keep us from being able to play Astro Fighter? Do you care about Astro Fighter? Hey, it's your copyright. Do you care? Probably not. You probably don't even know about it. But the IDSA is out here shutting down sites, acting as your legal agent. Tell them you're pissed. Support the boycott. Do your part. That's what I say. Do what you can. Now, on another note, now we've got an anti-IDSA boycott going on. This is so funny. This is like the phone company, you guys. This is some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. You got a boycott about somebody trying to do something, then you got an anti-boycott against the boycotting company. You know what this is, folks? This is caller ID in the computer world. The phone company's got us so well. People are sheep. That's all I can say. All right? Look at caller ID. You pay $6.95 to have caller ID, right? And since there's caller ID out there, they'll sell you for another $6.95 a month caller ID block so that your call can't, the other caller ID box can't see who it is. And then the same people that have caller ID, you can turn around and sell another $6.95 a month service to reject anonymous calls so that the people that have caller ID block can't call you. What a scam. I mean, I expect it from the phone company. I expect it from Microsoft. I expect it from Nintendo. But people, come on. Stop trying to stab each other in the back. Stop being press hungry. You know what? Can't we all just get along? It's just cracking me up. Boycott, anti-boycott. You guys have got to find something else to do with your days, all right? Suffice to say, do your part. I had to share that anti-boycott thing. That just cracks me up. I'm sorry. I'm gonna just keep bringing this one up. Caller ID for computers. Okay, well, now that I've blown about 30 minutes of the show here, ranting and raving, I guess it's time to do a little emulator update, huh? Okay, roll that screen over, boys. Emulator update. First, let's start with RetroCade. We always start with name. Let's start with RetroCade this week. RetroCade 1.2 beta has gone into private beta testing. There's some great stuff in here, people. We've got sound support now for a lot of the vector games like Star Castle. I'm just going to take a side note here. If you haven't played Star Castle with sound in a long time, like you haven't found a machine at the arcade, you got to play Star Castle again. Whole different game with sound. You're going to love it. Space Wars. We got sound for Space Invaders now. They've got partial sound support for the Nintendo games like Donkey Kong Jr., Mario Brothers. You can see the development stage is sort of flying along as MAME did. Gets partial support for this, partial support for that. We have got Tubin. They got Tubin running. It looks great. I mean, even though there's some graphic glitches here and there, it's beautiful. Other than that, there's been a lot of other good stuff. There's a debugger. Neil's written a debugger which is going to make game development a whole lot faster. Unfortunately, it broke a lot of things in the beta, which they're actively fixing right now, going back to the GUI problems, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to have a little bit of cleanup work to do before the next beta comes out. But it looks like they're really on it. This development cycle has been very slow, and it's been a while, but right here at the end, it's starting to get really exciting. The mail list, the RetroGame mail list is going nuts. Lots of little bugs. I'm hoping to nip out and sample the Mario Brothers missing sounds. That'll be exciting. Hopefully I'll do a better set than I got for Maine. They finally got a better set. But we're gonna do that. They're trying to get sound samples for some of the other Cinematronic games. There's been some posts out there. If you have a Cinematronics type game like Armor Attack or Warrior or one of those other vector games, if you've got one, don't wait another minute. Email me. Tell me you've got a machine that you're willing to provide samples for us. Because the RetroCade team would just love to be able to provide sound support for these games. So definitely get a hold of me if you've got those games. If you've got a RetroCade vector game that doesn't have sound, get a hold of me so that we can arrange to have you get some samples for us. On the main front, Maine has been doing relatively well. Lots of new games coming out for Maine. More support. There's been a lot more Neo Geo dumps, so we're getting some more accurate dumps. Chances are these days, if you've got a bad Neo Geo game, no sound support or sound is bad or there's glitches, chances are you got a bad dump. So run over and try to get a hold of that ROM if you can. All the different main versions are pretty much up to date. The 32-bit version of the latest beta, 3.5, I believe it's 3.5 beta. It's up to date, so you're going to want to get in on that. Lots of good stuff in there. Lots of little fixes. The main team, I got to congratulate them. They've been going back and they've been fixing little problems with games. They've been getting sound like in Venture and the Exidy games. I hear that work is underway on Crossbow. You guys own Crossbow is like one of the last games that I'd like to see emulated. Even if it is with the mouse pointer light gun emulation situation. I think that'd be great. Because Crossbow is atmospheric. You know, you had the screams and you had the freaky music and the creaking doors and all that stuff. It was really cool. I liked it. Actually, had a lot of cool stuff like that. Anyway, okay. That about wraps up for the emulation front. Oh, one last thing. If you're into Nintendo 64 emulation, I'm not going to dwell on it, but let me tell you one thing. If you're into Nintendo 64 emulation, while I may not condone it, as far as I'm concerned, people, you've got a legal right to a backup. If you own a Nintendo 64 and you've got cartridges, you are entitled to run that ROM on your PC. Okay? So there is a legal place for Nintendo emulation as far as I'm concerned. Wife, kids don't want to give up the TV, play Mario Kart on your PC. If you're legally entitled to do it, do it. And then with that note, Dave's Classics and Tim Eckel over right at Arcade at Home. Arcade at Home. I know we've had our little skirmishes. You guys know how I feel about ad banners. But Tim should be congratulated. He's been working with another group of individuals to update and modify the configuration file for Ultra HLE. They've added lots of new game support. Okay, these guys have really gone out of their way. And for that, I've got to thank them. They've been adding a lot of game support, a lot of fixes for existing games. These guys are really doing their part. I feel bad if I didn't give them a plug for that. But Dave's Classics always has the latest Ultra HLE ionized as well as arcadeathome.com. So that's a little emulation update in the Nintendo 64 area. I'll be sure to keep you posted if I hear any new news on Bleem. But at this point in time, we ain't got none. For those of you who are big into NES emulation and Game Boy emulation, it's been very exciting for you guys lately. Now, I'm not real big into that sort of thing myself, but I can tell you Dave'sClassics.com has been posting a lot of new Game Boy and NES emulators. There's been a lot of updates, and the emulation's actually come a long way. If you're into that sort of thing, I recommend going and checking out Dave's Classics. Get the latest emulation on that. Nothing new to report in C64 emulation, but you know that when I get that information, I will pass that along to you. It's time for an 8-bit flashback. We're running a long show this weekend, folks, but this week's 8-bit flashback, although short, is going to be sweet. This week we're looking at G.I. Joe for the Commodore 64. Now, you know, G.I. Joe has always kind of bugged the living crap out of me. It's been one of those shows that I've never watched. Don't watch it on TV. Didn't watch it on TV when I was a kid. There's got to be something wrong with a show where there's that many guns, that much going on, that much war going on, and nobody dies. Okay. Made for Barney Television. All right. Anyway, but one good thing did come out of G.I. Joe, and that is the C64 version. We're going to start running the screenshots here now. G.I. Joe was actually pretty amazing. It was actually spearheaded by Epix, which, of course, Epix came out with some of the best stuff for the early 64 days. Summer games, winter games. They came out with great stuff. And G.I. Joe was certainly no exception. Very cutting edge. The graphics were very good. And the basics of this game were pretty simple. This was an action game, people. Let's just not even talk about there being a lot of strategy, okay? The game would pretty much open up with like an overhead world map. Pretty cool graphics for a C64, where there'd be fighting hotspots going on. And once you picked your hotspot, you'd then be taken to a screen choosing mode where you would choose who you wanted to send against them. And you had all the characters. They were all there: Duke, Scarlet, Spirit, Blowtorch, Stalker, Gung-Ho, Snowjob, Torpedo, blah, 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 blah. Sounds like a Mortal Kombat lineup. Anyway, you'd pick the character you wanted to fight with. Okay, as soon as you picked your character, you'd see who you were going to fight against. And, of course, most of the bad guys are there: Major Blood, Destro, Zartan, blah, blah, blah. Those of you who watch the show, you'll know what I'm talking about. And, of course, what makes it sort of an Archon-ish type approach is that you fought basically one-on-one with some environmental elements. Now, what really made this kind of cool, that I thought anyway, was during the load sequence, it would show various different bases. It would show like a base out in the middle of nowhere, and while the game was loading, a little truck would drive by the screen. It was the, in-progress loading screen. It was kind of inventive, where a helicopter would fly overhead to show you the progress of the load. It was kind of cool. I mean, they even had a cool little G.I. Joe turn the disc over screen, which you're going to see there too on the screenshots. Once you actually got into the game, as the one screen snapshot shows that I'm going to show this week, you can see Scarlet there fighting with whomever, and they're on a street environment. There's this little robot running around to add chaos to it, and basically it was a lot like Arkanoid. You can see the forces, the health of both forces up in the top left, and you would try to mow each other down. Just like on Archon, I swear Archon had a big influence on this game. You both had health, and you both had a weapon charging situation. You can see underneath the two names, the G.I. Joe and Cobra there, that there's a little red dot. Well, that would change to green when you could fire. Once you fired, your weapon had to basically recharge. Like I said, feels a lot like Archon, doesn't it? It feels a lot like Archon. Anyway, and basically you would eliminate the forces one by one, and whoever was the last victor after all the forces were closed out, they had the victory. But the music was very, very good. The sound effects were very good. The graphics, as you can see, weren't too bad for C64. And those of you who didn't get enough action out of Archon, and God only knows Archon 2 and Archon 3 were worthless, and Archon Ultra for the PC, all I can say about that is, damn. No one's done a good Archon remake. I tell you what, any game manufacturers out there, any game writers out there, anybody who wants a new project to tackle, you bring me Archon in a nice, fast, DirectX or whatever situation. I want all the pieces rendered. I want them all 3D rendered. I want a full-blown stereo soundtrack. And I want lighting effects. I want all of it. You remake that, you'll have a hit. Because Archon is still one of the top games that everyone ever talks about when they talk about old 64 games. Even Amiga had Archon. Even the PC had Archon. Apple, too, had Archon. Everybody had Archon. It was one of the greatest games of our day. This is a good remake, but it could be done better. Anyway, the game again, G.I. Joe for the Commodore 64. I will have the ROMs available up on the 8-bit Flashback Zone on Monroe World, so you can pick that game up, give it a try. It works fine with CCS 64, the latest version 2.0 beta. Didn't have any problems at all. You will have to manually switch the disk when it's disk turnover time. You guys should all be already knowledgeable on how to do that at this point in time. It does take a long time to load. You'll probably think that it's not going to work by how long it takes to load the first screen. But the crack did have the fast load routine ripped off of it. So chances are, unless you have like a Jiffy DOS overlay for your 64 emulator, or you're using a special fast load cartridge routine on the CCS 64 emulator, chances are it's going to be a little slow. You might get discouraged, but it's well worth taking a look. Once again, that was from Epix, and that'll tidy up the 8-bit Flashback. Okay, folks, we're really running out of time. It looks like we're cutting about 40 minutes this episode already. If you're not bored already, let me go ahead and help you out here. I'm going to do a little bit of personal plugging. As most of you know, I've been working with a group called Star Premier Web. StarPremierWeb.com is the name of the official page. It's under construction. And I am a partner, one-third partner, with James Hong and one of my other associates, Jay. We are making the Star Premier Web, which is an umbrella site for celebrities. If you're a celebrity and you happen to be listening to this show, which is really cool, then if you need an official site on the Internet, you need someone to take care of it, that's what Star Premier Web does. We do it at no cost to you, and through the power of many stars, we can bring exposure to everybody. And that's all in the brochure. So you'll want to go take a look at that threefold brochure that Jimmy told me I was going to have to make. Inside joke, but I had to throw it in for my partner's sake. Anyway, everyone's been waiting about this JamesHong.com thing. Well, JamesHong.com, JamesHong.com is open for business. So you can go take a look at why I've been cutting back on Retro Radio, why I've been cutting back on being on the chat rooms. I've been a busy boy. Also, in that, if you are a Cynthia Rothrock fan, she is signed up with Star Premier Web. We will be handling her official website. She is a martial artist actress, black belt, 5 disciplines, etc., etc. She and my associate will be at the Arnold Schwarzenegger Fitness Show. It's a fitness thing they do once a year. It's in Columbus, Ohio this year, the 5th, 6th, and 7th. And Cynthia will be there, as will my partner, taking pictures and bringing live updates up on Star Premier Web. And who knows? You never know who you might see there. So I'm inviting you to go take a look at that. We'll be on spot covering that. Also, for those of you who are into classic gaming, like the old Commodore Amiga days, you may remember Scorched Tanks. Well, guess what? Scorched Tanks is coming back. And it's coming for the PC, and it's going to be hot. The other thing that's been taking away most of my time is I've been writing a page for the new official Scorched Tanks for the PC. For those of you who may not be familiar with Scorched Tanks is a superior artillery game. Now, you've probably heard of Scorched Earth. Maybe you've played Warheads. Maybe you've played the old Guerrilla for MS-DOS Basic. Basically, the idea is to destroy your enemy by setting your power and your angle on your weapon. Where Scorched Tanks far exceeds Scorched Earth and other such games is the fact that there are going to be 100 weapons. There's going to be a weapon scripting language. There are environmentals. You can have at least 4 tanks, maybe more. We don't know at this time because the game's still under development. And what's more is the screen scrolls. You actually have a very large virtual area to play on. It's not like Scorched Earth where if you have 10 players and you shot a weapon, you can't help but hit somebody, anybody. The weapons are all varied and unique. In other words, it's not like 1-shot, 5-shot, MIRV, and that's pretty much it, or some variation. We're talking about weapons that pull the dirt up and drop tanks in them. We're talking about weapons that send a sound blast across the terrain. We're talking about weapons that hail down laser shots from the sky, or popcorn explosions, or napalm, or we're talking about filling up a tank sitting in a valley. We're talking about filling the tank up with hot lava or liquid nitrogen. I mean, the weapon situation is amazing. I mean, the shield types, varied shield types. We're not just talking about protective shields. We're talking about shields that rebound or bounce off or push away shots. We're talking about wind and environmental conditions. This is the kind of game, let me put it this way, it's not going to look like much. It's going to look like an old retro game. It's going to be small and tight. You'll probably be able to put it on a floppy disk and give it to your buddy. That's the kind of game we're talking about. We're hoping to have network play in it. This is the sort of game that becomes super addictive, and anybody who misses out on Scorched Tanks is going to really miss out on a great game. Anyway, so I've been offering the official Scorched Tanks page. So you may want to go take a look. I would have Flash 3 installed before you go. It is under construction. It may not prompt you for a plug-in, but we're working on it. But if you do have a plug-in, you'll get to see a pretty cool little intro, if I do say so myself. Go take a look at that, and we'll be posting new news and information about Scorched Tanks. It's a very exciting thing. Well, folks, I think I'm going to leave you poor folks alone at 45 minutes. This is the longest show to date. I appreciate you guys sticking through to the end. And I'm hoping that you continue to listen. I've been getting great fan mail. As I like to tell on all my shows, you fans are the best anybody could have, be it my webpage, be it for Retro Radio. I've got such a diverse listening group, and there's so many of you out there. I never, ever thought that Retro Radio would become this popular. I've got ministers, I got doctors, I got crackheads. I've got everybody listening to Retro Radio. And I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. And hopefully you'll bear with me with my little commercialized plugs I put in here. You'll notice it's almost all stuff I'm involved in. I still don't plan on putting any advertising into Retro Radio or put advertising on Monroe World, because I know that I don't like advertising myself, and I try to keep you guys out of that. Okay, folks, I'm going to wrap it up for Retro Radio and Monroe World. My name is Shane R. Monroe. Thank you for listening, and until next month.